for making this possible.
Tom, one of my great memories of that '93 program is looking over during the barbecue at the end of the conference and seeing you and Murray early in the evening animatedly talking together, and then I come back hours later and you're still animatedly talking together, and it was just a great. I know that was a great moment in your life, and Murray is up there saying "attaboy" to you for this book, because we certainly have you build on all the great Austrian economists, whether it's Rothbard or Mises, Hayek, and the others. But you've put this together in a way that, for the proverbial intelligent layman, for any American who's concerned about what the heck is happening to our economy, what lies ahead for us, why are we in this trouble, and what can we do about it, this is the book to read, Meltdown.
Well, I appreciate that, Lew. And I have two things to say. First is that Murray was an extremely generous person, in addition to being a genius. And, because, who was I, at that time? Just some kid. And he generously gave of himself in those situations and was extremely encouraging. And I'll never, there were two little incidents I remember. First, the second time I saw Murray was also in an environment where there were a lot of students. And he entered the room and he walked right up to me and said, "Hi, Tom." And I looked at the other students and I just said, "Eat your heart out. Come on." Right? And then secondly, I recall, not only that, he stayed up late and, was always interested in talking to people, but, he was just, he would, if you had even the slightest inkling of a paper topic or something, he was ready, he was like David Gordon in that he was just a bibliography of just endless sources, and I remember at the end of one of these long conversations when I said, "Well, Professor Rothbard," and he said, "Call me Murray." And I thought, I don't think I can. I just don't think I can do that. But with regard to the book, you're right. I mean, in effect, what I'm trying to do is, convey all this stuff to the layman and provide some ammunition for people who feel like, they're really getting it from all sides. Like family members are telling them, just what they're reading in the papers, that capitalism is dead and so on and so forth. And we've got people around the current president now saying that, we can't let this crisis go to waste. We have to exploit it to expand the state. So, of course, their interpretation of the crisis is going to be that the market has failed, because only that interpretation will justify their additional power grab. So we need to be able to defend ourselves and show that their account of what has happened is utterly implausible, and it is absurd to blame on the free market a problem that is caused in almost every one of its particulars by the Federal Reserve System, which we cannot repeat enough is not part of the free market.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Do you want liberty in your lifetime? The Free State Project is our best chance. We are people who know that liberty will not be achieved by more of the same tactics and are committed to a strategy that will work. Check us out on the web at freestateproject.org. That's freestateproject.org.
If we read Murray Rothbard's great book, America's Great Depression, we see that, of course, the myth that was really fastened on almost everybody's brain during the 1930s and subsequently, that Hoover was a free market guy, the free market had failed, thank goodness we had Franklin Roosevelt who fixed everything. Of course, Hoover was the first New Dealer, he was a horrible statist. Franklin Roosevelt didn't fix anything, he made everything worse. But to what extent are they succeeding in telling these lies and making them fixed in people's brains again today about this current crisis?
It's amazing to me that the old view of Hoover is somehow being resurrected when any competent historian knows, in effect, at least that part of Rothbard's story now. I mean, when Murray was telling that story in 1963 in America's Great Depression, it was still kind of revisionist history. But today, you would think with our advances in our knowledge, everybody knows. Any competent historian knows this. And I think the specialists do know this. The specialists typically do know it. I mean, there is a reason that, Franklin Roosevelt condemned Hoover as the biggest spendthrift in American history, and Roosevelt's vice presidential nominee said that Hoover was leading the country down the road to socialism. I mean, why did they say these things, right? But it's true that I think the average person, is busy, doesn't have a lot of time to study these things, and so is going to read going to read Salon or read what's in the New York Times or read Paul Krugman or whatever, and be under the impression that, I guess Herbert Hoover just sat back and did nothing, just like George W. Bush. How somebody, though, can be persuaded to live in that alternate universe, I just don't know. I mean, how you could first think that George W. Bush was a free marketeer is beyond me. But then, Hoover's record is pretty much out there for everybody to see. And FDR's own aides admitted, like Rexford Tugwell actually admitted, that in effect we're really just extrapolating from the programs that Hoover started. And today, now the claim is on part of people like Krugman that, we're really not being fair to Roosevelt, that if you do different sort of employment statistics series, you come up with a slightly better record for Roosevelt. But I mean, this is just playing with the numbers. I mean, anybody who lived during that time knows, how many people were out of work. And then the claim is that, things were really starting to look up. FDR's programs were really doing well until about 1937, when we got the so-called Depression within the Depression. And that was supposedly because at that time Roosevelt was not spending as much on public works projects, and that's what did it. Well, first of all, if after 4 years of recovery, so-called, the economy still needs the government building crummy, politically motivated bridge projects to keep it going, then how sound has this recovery been in the first place? But secondly, left out of this account is that it's right around this time that the Supreme Court had ratified some of the new labor laws that were giving real teeth to labor unionism in the U.S. And right around the time of 1937, just in that 1 year period, wages suddenly rose by about 13% all of a sudden. You think that might have had, a teensy-weensy bit to do with why the economy turned down? But that can never be the answer we're allowed to get. It's always that they haven't ever spent enough. And this is a good reminder for the scholars among us that of the importance of economic theory, as dull as that sounds. Because if you don't have sound economic theory, you will forever be arguing with Paul Krugman, because he's going to always say it's never enough. It's $1 trillion of spending, it's not enough. It's a Google of spending, it's not enough. A Google dollars spent is not enough. How are you ever going to resolve that back and forth unless you've got some sound theoretical understanding about why it is that merely using things up can't possibly make a country prosperous?
Murray